I think it's way too red in here. I'll get into it and fix it while you watch this.
I got you! I got you!
Okay, so I got to see The Batman at the theaters when it came out. I got to see it like opening night on a Thursday, but I kind of wanted to sit on it for a while because when I got out of the theater, I was thinking this might be my very next 11 out of 11 film. I don't give those out very often. Last time I did was with Willy's Wonderland. And so I was really considering doing that, but I want to sit on it for a while, think about it for a little bit, think, yeah, was it a perfect film in my eyes? Obviously, no one can establish the perfect film, but I was trying to establish if this, to me, was a perfect film. In the meantime, I was able to look over this really neat popcorn holder that I got from the theater. It was pretty cheap, and it's like a life-size replica of the Batman cowl from the movie. And it's pretty neat. You can't wear it, but it does look cool on the wall, especially since I don't eat popcorn that often, but still, it is pretty cool. They have these at the AMC theaters, so you can go check those out. If they still have them, they might be sold out by now. But so, yeah, I was kind of trying to see if there's anything about this film that I didn't like. And to be honest, there actually was. But it doesn't hurt the movie enough to make it unwatchable, and I would still highly recommend this film. But it's not a perfect film. And I'm going to do something a little odd. I'm going to go over every negative aspect of this film I have first. Then I'm going to get into the positive aspects because those do far outweigh the negatives. So, first negative were the plot holes for me. There was a couple of plot holes that they could have avoided with just a couple lines of dialogue. And like one of those plot holes, I don't think this is a spoiler, but they never explain how the Riddler knows anything that he knows. I mean, he knows secrets that people have been murdered for, okay? He knows things that are unraveling the city. He knows secret deals and secret business partings and secret mergers, and never once, that at least I saw, did they show how, or say how he even knew how any of this information. I mean, seriously, how did he know any of this? A simple line of like, yeah, he has surveillance on all these people for years. They didn't really do that, at least that I saw. I could be forgetting, but like, if they did have an explanation for how he knew what he knew, it was so quick that it's a very forgettable line in said film. The other plot hole I have is, I won't spoil this because it is kind of a big moment in the movie, but I will use Batman Begins as an explanation. If you remember Batman Begins, there's this whole kind of like information note throughout the film about how Wayne Tower is the center of Gotham City and how electrical, water, gas, everything runs through Wayne Tower and through the rest of the city, making it the unofficial center of Gotham City. There's a couple of two old geezers at the end of the film explaining how if this device gets to the center of Gotham, all of Gotham will be destroyed. Basically, it's repeated over and over and over again to a very obnoxious degree that Wayne Tower is crucial, especially in the third act when the Madman is trying to get away with his terrorist plot. Okay? Now, The Batman does something completely opposite of this, where, let's say, for example's purposes, they're using Wayne Tower. As the bad guy was on the train with the device, he just makes a quick mention that, oh yeah, all water power and electrical goes to Wayne Tower, which will mean my device will destroy all of Gotham. It's like, just quick little lines. Like, really? I had no idea that that was a thing with the infrastructure of Gotham City. And, like, you could have done anything to allude to some of that before. I mean, it's just kind of jarring. Like, oh yeah, Gotham City has this infrastructure. Okay, like, no, I did not know that, and like only when the climatic thing happens does that become relevant. And so in my mind, that was very poor writing. Another thing I did not like was there was a couple times, especially one line from Catwoman, that just completely tears you out of the movie because it's employing real world politic messaging and propaganda into said film. I can't stand when movies that are focused on escapism pull this shit. Okay? When I go to Star Wars and go to experience a galaxy far, far away from my own shitty galaxy, I want to experience the galaxy far, far away. I don't want to get lectured about the horrors of war profiteering and how both sides are actually evil and how there really isn't a good guy or a bad guy. It's all just a political war machine. Like, cut that fucking shit out. I don't want to see any of this real world propaganda shit. I just want to go for 2 hours to a galaxy far, far away. And the Batman, I just want to go to Gotham City for 3 hours, okay, and forget about my shitty real world. But no, the filmmakers in this movie decided that they had to have a couple of lines, especially a really cringy one from Catwoman, pulling you out of the experience. Anytime anyone has a propaganda type thing like that in a movie, it takes me out of the experience. It makes me go, oh yeah, I'm in a theater, and it takes me out of the movie. And anytime that happens, the movie automatically loses a point for doing shit like that. Okay, so automatically that right there prevents this from being 11 out of 11 because it took me out of the experience. When you have me in a movie, you should not be taking me out of the experience. Okay? Simple logic, right? And the other thing I did not like about this movie was how they went about Bruce Wayne. Now, granted, Bruce Wayne is not a substantial character in this movie. He's only in it for a handful of seconds, if not minutes. He is barely in this movie. The main focal character of this movie is the Batman. Okay? Now, for that reason alone, I can kind of cut some slack. But to be completely honest, they need to work a little bit more on Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne. Okay? I feel like there's potential there, but like there was nothing unique about it. There was nothing showing that, okay, he's doing Bruce Wayne. It just kind of seemed like he was standing there and grunting most of the time because he didn't know how to act normal in public. Sure, that could have been intentional, but there's always been kind of like three sides to Bruce Wayne. There's the fake public demeanor where he's always smiling, happy, and then there's the private Bruce Wayne where Alfred and some of his family actually see the Bruce Wayne he really is, and then there's Batman. So typically you get like three characters with a Batman interpretation. But they only had the one, Batman. And so he was just kind of being Batman as Bruce Wayne. And like some people have tried defending us saying, yeah, that was intentional. I personally feel like this was just, they didn't know how to develop Bruce Wayne yet. So I kind of hold that against the film. Did Robert Pattinson do a terrible job as Bruce Wayne? No. I mean, but I thought it could have been a lot better. Especially since Robert Pattinson has played like rich millionaires in the past. So he could have focused that. But, and then another thing I really hated, oh my gosh, this was terrible, is the new mayor candidate. Like, they were trying to hold this mayoral candidate up as, you know, the new future of Gotham, the hero Gotham deserves, the beacon of righteousness and justice. And she is the biggest fucking dick you have ever seen, okay? Like, there was literally a scene in the movie where, like, my jaw just dropped. It's like, this is your White Knight. Seriously? Your savior. I mean, this woman, literally, is trying to peddle money out of millionaires at the funeral of her political rival. When you do shit like that, you are a massive dickhead. There is no exception. Alright? You do not try and peddle for campaign funds at your opponent's funeral. Okay? You have any idea how big of a fucking asshole you come off as? And then there's another scene at the end where she does something so incredibly stupid. And it's just like I was waiting for Jim Gordon to say, you deserve this. You really do. I tried warning you, and you deserve this. I hope it hurts. All that together, that's like my only real criticism of this film, because everything else I absolutely loved about this movie. One, I absolutely love, this is so silly, but I love that I didn't have to see Bruce Wayne's parents get shot again. I have seen Bruce Wayne's parents get shot so many times. I have PTSD from seeing that murder happen over and over and over again in video games, comic books, movies. Hollywood, I never have to see that fucking murder again. So please, stop it, and thank you, Matt Reeves, for not making me suffer through the death of Bruce Wayne's parents. We even had to see his parents get shot in the Joker movie, which was absolutely unnecessary. So yes, I'm so happy about that. Another thing I absolutely love were kind of the two big villains, the Penguin and the Riddler, respectively played by Colin Farrell and Paul Dano. Both these guys do an amazing job. I absolutely loved both of these attempts at these two characters. The Penguin went with more of an Arkham Origins type vibe with the Penguin, where he didn't really start embracing the Penguin motif so much. He was just a gangster, and I love that. And Colin Farrell does a great job. He has a couple of great scene-chewing moments where he just steals the scene from Batman himself, which is easier said than done. And then, like, Paul Dano as the Riddler. I loved that they never showed him in the trailers, apart from, like, the back of his head. I love that kind of sense of mystery they had with it. But he made the Riddler more like what I remembered the Riddler. He didn't go with the campy 1960s Batman, like, over-the-top Riddler like Jim Carrey did with Frank Gorshin. He went more with, like, kind of the animated series, like, intellectual, but they still had him like an outcast, you know, dweeb sort of, but a very intelligent, highly intellectual psychopath dweeb. And I love that aspect of the Riddler. I loved the riddles he did. They weren't these lame, cheap things that you saw with the original series from the 60s, where the answer is a duck with a machine gun. Okay? Like, these were pretty cool Saw-like riddles, or Seven-like riddles. And so I thought that was a fascinating aspect to do with this villain. I'd like to see them do alternate changes on other villains in the future, seeing how this made over $500 million so far, and it's still climbing, so clearly they're making a sequel to this. But I absolutely love the villains in this, and I am looking forward to what they do next with them. Another thing I absolutely love is the Batmobile and the Batmobile intro. So the Batmobile basically is like a Dodge Charger heavily modified. It doesn't feel like some military tech. It doesn't feel like something from the future, or it doesn't feel like an animal. It just feels like a guy in his garage throwing a bunch of armor onto an old classic muscle car, and while he was at it, threw a jet engine on the back. This is like at the beginning of Batman's career. This is like year 2. So he wouldn't have any super advanced tech like that. And I absolutely love that. I love that it's a very grounded, basic approach to not only the Batmobile, but everything else in this film. And the way they introduce the Batmobile is so awesome. Oh, like, it's one of the best Batmobile introductions I've ever seen. It is so cool how, like, it just, like, starts off in the shadows, and it literally stops this firefight. Like, this firefight between, like, 3 factions. Everyone stops firing when the Batmobile kicks on, and it just starts growling louder and louder and louder in this shadow area. And it's just so awesome. I cannot stress enough how cool the Batmobile was in this movie. Another thing I like that a lot of people hate, but it's considered kind of controversial now, but I absolutely love this, is the eye makeup. I know it's silly, but I love that Batman is wearing eye makeup now, because one of the things that always tore me out of the experience, like we talked about earlier, you know, you don't want to tear your movie out of the experience, but one of the things that always tore me out of the experience of a Batman film is when you would see Batman, he has the cowl on, and you could clearly see that those eye makeup around his eyes, and then he takes the cowl off, and then next frame, his eyes are completely clean. Like, just that always bugged me and tore me out of the experience. And now, like, when he takes the cowl off, you see the eye makeup, and I love it. I got so tired of seeing people take off the cowl, and there'll be no eye makeup, and so I like that they had that in this movie. This movie does have a very grounded feel. I would say more so than The Dark Knight, which was probably one of the most grounded Batman movies I've ever seen. So this does kind of surpass that in that grounded vibe. Everything in this movie does feel like it could realistically work. Even probably the most advanced thing I saw were his contact lenses. Batman has these contact lenses that he puts in that records everything he sees, so he can, like, rewind the playback. And, like, that was probably the most advanced thing I saw. And, like, when I saw that for the first time, I was thinking, yeah, we'll probably have that in, like, 5 years, maybe 7. Like the technology in this movie did not feel fake or unbelievable at all. Every piece of tech Batman had felt like a realistic tool that could work in the future. Down to even the way he glides. The way he glides in this movie, it's not something he could just turn on and off like in the Christian Bale Batman movies. It wasn't some imaginary text. He literally has a freaking wingsuit, and it's like a one-time use thing. And I absolutely loved that. Again, another thing I like is the way this movie starts off. The way the world is set up. This movie is set up like a film noir detective story. And is heavily influenced by Seven, alright? There's even a scene where it, like, just straight up copies the scene where they go into John Doe's apartment for the first time. It's Seven. I mean, it's just exactly like that. But the way this movie starts off has this very Blade Runner-esque voiceover by Batman talking about the city, and it's taking place at night, and it has this very film noir type of narration, and the narration continues on throughout a lot of the movie. I won't say it's constant, but there are times in the movie when Batman's narration does kick back on, and so you have this very film noir detective style movie going on with this, which I absolutely love. This brings me to my absolute favorite part of this entire movie, and that is they actually made Batman feel like a detective. Of all the movies, the old series, the animated show, the Michael Keaton Batman, the Christian Bale Batman, all the movies, like, none of them made Batman feel like his title, the world's greatest detective. I never got to see Batman actually be a detective, apart from a few scenes in a couple of movies. Usually there's like a scene of detective work, and then it's always Batman arriving at a place, beating up goons, and then chasing after the villain until he finally has a showdown with the villain. Watch all the Batman movies, that's usually what it's like. There's a couple of exceptions, but it's typically that. And so with this movie, it is the hunt for a serial killer, and he is playing detective. And I absolutely loved this. I loved this detective story. Batman feels like a detective, to the point that, like, one of the earlier scenes, when they're looking at body, he will literally mention something. He literally mentions something about how the blood is coagulating, proving that he died after or before the incision was made on this part of his body. And so it was just like, automatically they established that Batman is a forensic detective. And it is amazing. I love the detective feel to this movie. Another small thing I did like is I liked his voice better than Christian Bale's Batman voice. It's kind of a more soft tone, but it's not that like gravelly rocks and throat vibe that Christian Bale was doing. And one more thing I want to point out is so many people criticize the 3-hour runtime. Okay, a lot of people said, it's too long, it's too long, it's too long, it should have been half an hour short. No! This shit should have been longer, okay? Because think about it. It's a 7-year wait in between Batman movies, typically. Alright? If you're lucky, it's like a 3-year wait. And so we wait a long time to just get a Batman movie. And this is the first Batman movie that we actually get 3 hours long. Like, this is not a movie. This is an event, okay? Whenever there is a new Batman movie or, you know, superhero movie, it is an event. Whenever there's new Avengers film, it is an event. And so, with movies like this, I didn't hear anyone complain about Avengers Endgame's 3-hour runtime, okay? Didn't hear anyone complain about it because it was an event, okay? And the Batman is an event. I honestly wish it was longer because I don't get Batman but once every couple of years. So when I do get Batman, I want to see Batman. And so for the film, if any of the filmmakers who are making the next one see this, you make that shit longer. Because I absolutely loved that this was 3 hours. I wanted this to be longer because the 3-hour runtime was awesome. I absolutely loved it. There was one time I was thinking, man, this has been going on for a while, and like he's not even close to finding out who he is. So like I hope they don't do like a quick ending and like tune in next time, and they didn't. No, they had a 3-hour epic, and I loved it. Ending could have used a little bit of tweaking, but overall, I didn't hate the ending as much as like other people hated the ending. So yeah, no, I loved that this was 3 hours. Now, one of the two more controversial things about this film are kind of the casting choices of Catwoman and Jim Gordon. Now, one of them I don't think is terribly controversial simply because Zoe Kravitz has played Catwoman before in the Lego Batman movie, and she's not the first black Catwoman. So, like, honestly, when they casted her as Catwoman, I was just like, oh, okay. I mean, it's like, yeah, no. I mean, Halle Berry did it, Eartha Kitt did it, and so Zoe Kravitz did it. And honestly, apart from that one really bad, cringy line, Zoe Kravitz does a great job as Catwoman. I liked her as Catwoman. I would be willing to see her again as Catwoman. I don't like the costume. I always preferred the, like, classic Catwoman look over the new, like, sleek, future tech Catwoman with the goggles. I prefer the crazy, like, latex, stitched up suit from, like, the 92 Batman Returns film. And stuff kind of like that. The animated series, you know, that Catwoman suit, the suit from the Long Halloween. You know, I kind of prefer stuff like that, but that's just criticism on the suit. They were trying to go with a more grounded look to it, so I don't really hate that so much. But that's honestly, like, one of my only real criticisms about Catwoman. As Selina Kyle, I like almost every aspect of her. I like how she fights. I like how her fight scenes didn't feel fake. Her fight scenes actually felt realistic, and there were some fight scenes where she was actually being put on the ropes, so I thought that was very realistic. I like that they were willing to show that she can't just walk out of every fight scene, that she actually has to work for it, and it explains why she goes for a more stealth-like approach with some of her scenarios. So I thought that was really good and well done. In terms of Jim Gordon, I probably would have been the first guy to have been pissed off about this, because I have established this numerous times before. I cannot stand when they race or gender swap a character. If you're adapting a comic book, or a book, or a old movie, or a cartoon, or a video game, if it wasn't like an RPG where you can make your own character, keep the race and sex the exact same as the character that originally was. I know you're probably going to think I'm a terrible, bigot, horrible, evil person, but I just like seeing stuff stick to the source material. That being said, when they announced that it was Jeffrey Wright playing Jim Gordon, I was perfectly fine with it. Because Jeffrey Wright is one of my 4 favorite actors in Hollywood. And if you don't know who he is, you should simply just watch Shaft with Samuel Jackson. He plays the crime lord in that movie, and he does an amazing job. He also does a great job in Casino Royale as Felix Leiter. Anyway, Felix from James Bond. And so, and even then, when James Bond happened, when they race swapped Felix to Jeffrey Wright, it's like, I approve, because Jeffrey Wright is a fucking amazing actor. And so, when I saw the trailer for the Batman and heard that Jeffrey Wright was playing Jim Gordon, it's just like, you got rid of another redhead, but, I mean, it's Jeffrey Wright, so, yeah. And Jeffrey Wright does an amazing job in this. He really does a good job capturing Jim Gordon. If there is anyone that probably could have done a good job at Jim Gordon, it was Jeffrey Wright, and so he did a fantastic job. I want to see him as Jim Gordon again. I thought him and Batman worked well off of each other, exceptionally well in a lot of the scenes, and honestly, he has a much larger role in this Batman film than I think in almost any other Batman film, and I would even be willing to say he probably had a larger role as Jim Gordon in this movie than probably Gary Oldman in any of his movies. I might be wrong about that, but just Gary Oldman did get a lot of focus on Jim Gordon in a lot of his movies, and Jeffrey Wright got probably more focus in this movie. So I liked his performance of Jim Gordon. I'm looking forward to seeing him do more with the character, and I think him and Robert Pattinson work well off of each other. So overall, I would say this is a damn fine film. Really exceptional. I am looking forward to watching this again and even owning this. I highly recommend, if you get a chance to see this at the theater, go see it. I won't say it's a perfect film because it just stumbles a couple of places, but honestly, this is probably one of the best movies you're going to see this year. And so, yeah, I would probably leave it at that. So that's been my review of the Batman. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. My name's Christopher Connell with 11th Hour Reviews. Don't forget to, do the thing. And that will be